Okay, so today we're going to learn a new skill. It is taking Cornell Notes. And so the first thing you'll notice is that just like on papers that we turn in class, there is a heading area. It's the same format that I use for my papers on campus. So it's first and last name. You put your first and last name. Science. And then the class period that you're in, I'm going to use first. And then today's date. I encourage you to practice using cursive for the month. By the end of the year, you will have written most of the letters that are used in the alphabet. And so you've pretty much taught yourself how to write cursive. So there's our top part. Now, we're going to be using textbook pages starting on page 179, the reproduction and hereditary unit 4 out of your textbook. And specifically, this is going to be about lesson 1, which is mitosis. And so we're going to look at where it says topic, and our topic is mitosis. And then where it says objective on page 182 at the very bottom left corner, we have our objectives listed by the state of Texas. And 712F says recognize that according to cell theory, all organisms are composed of cells, and cells carry on similar functions such as extracting energy from food to sustain life. So rather than write all of that, I am just going to write 7.12F, cell theory. Now, we know that cell theory has 3 parts. In fact, if you looked back in your journal on page 3, we have cell theory, the 3 parts. All organisms are composed of 1 or more cells. Cell is the basic unit of life, and all cells come from other cells. So we are going to be using that objective, and then we're also going to use 714C, which says recognize that inherited traits of individuals are governed in the genetic material found in the genes within chromosomes in the nucleus. And so for that one, I'm just going to write inherited traits from, and that genetic material that's found in the genes with the chromosomes is actually DNA. And so I just kind of summarized that. And a lot of Cornell Notes is being able to read, comprehend, and then summarize what it is that you're studying. Okay? And so the next part of our Cornell Notes is the essential question. So look on page 182 and find the words essential question. And it's really obvious. There it is. So our essential question is, how do cells divide? So I'm going to write, how do cells divide? Question mark. So it's important that you make sure your essential question is actually a question. And so it says by the end of this lesson, you should be able to relate the process of mitosis to its functions in single-celled and multicellular organisms. I like to look at pictures and examine them. So looking at this picture, at first glance, I thought, oh, this is space. This is something in outer space, like a supernova or something. But it's not. It's actually something really, really small, in fact, microscopic. This is a human skin cell dividing to produce 2 new cells that are identical to the original cell. And of course, we know our organelles, or our parts of the cell. This area right here is the nucleus. Yeah. So it's the nucleus. That's where the DNA would be. And then the rest of this shows them in the division process. That cell division process is called mitosis. And so I want you to go ahead and look on page 183. Before we start, we want to see what we already know, kind of what we did on our genetics pretest, but I'm going to read each one of these. You're going to mark what you think right now. Don't have to look it up, just mark what you think right now, true or false. Single-celled organisms can reproduce by cell division. The only function of a cell division is reproduction. In multicellular organisms, cell division can help repair injured areas. And cell division produces two cells that are different from each other. And then I want you to go on, look at the picture. This is a large sequoia tree. It says the old sequoia tree weighs many tons and has billions of cells. These trees start out as tiny seeds, just like any other tree. And I want you to predict, how did these trees get so large? So your sentence might start with, sequoia trees become large by or because, and then whatever your answer is. Okay, give you a second to do that. And if you need more time, you could just pause the video. At the bottom, it says synthesize. You can often define an unknown word if you know the meaning of its word parts. We call those prefixes and suffixes and root words, okay? Use the word parts and the sentence below to make an educated guess about the meaning of cytokinesis. Cyto means hollow vessel. Kinesis means division. And so we've had the prefix cyto before. What word did we have that had cyto in it? Cytoplasm, right? The example sentence is, when a dividing cell undergoes cytokinesis, two cells are produced. So go ahead and write what you think the meaning of cytokinesis is. Give you a second to do that. And then the vocabulary terms, after we've done the unit, we're going to put these in the glossary. So I'm just going to put a little reminder that later we'll put those in the glossary. Okay? On to page 184. It says Splitsville. Why do cells divide? We have a main topic here, and then we have two things that are in red. Guess what? The answer to that question is right here. Why do cells divide? Reproduction, growth, and repair. Okay? So we're going to read through this. It says cell division happens in all organisms. Cell division takes place for different reasons. For example, single-cell organisms reproduce through cell division. In multicellular organisms, cell division is involved in growth, development, and repair, as well as reproduction. Now, under reproduction, we have cell division is important for asexual reproduction, which involves only one parent organism. In single-cell organisms, the parent can divide in two, producing two identical offspring. In single-celled and some multicellular organisms, reproduction can occur when a parent organism, one parent, right, buds, producing an offspring. In multicellular organisms, reproduction by cell division can include plant structures, such as runners and plantlets. If you've ever seen an airplane plant, you know it's like a large potted plant, kind of like a fern. It will produce a stalk or a little runner, and at the end of that stalk, there'll be a teeny tiny little airplane plant that you could pinch off and actually go and plant it. That is reproduction. That plant has just made a clone of itself that is genetically identical to it. Now, the other reason for cell division is growth and repair. One characteristic of all living things is that they grow. Again, if you refer back to your journal, I think it was on page 7, maybe not, page 5. 7 characteristics of life. In order to be living, it has to be able to move, it has to be able to do cellular respiration, it has to sense its environment and adapt, it has to grow. it has to be able to reproduce, excrete waste, and take in nutrients for energy. So those were the 7 characteristics of life. So, and one of those characteristics is it has to be able to grow. It says you're probably bigger this year than you were last year. Your body's made up of cells. And although the cells themselves do grow, most growth in multicellular organisms happens because of cell division, producing new cells. Cell division also produces cells for repair. If you cut your hand or break a bone, the damaged cells are replaced by new cells that form during cell division. All right, so we're going to start our Cornell note-taking process. So we have a place for questions and we have a place for notes. Our textbook is really great about giving us a question and then giving us the answer. So the question is, why do cells divide? What is the purpose of those cells dividing? Well, the purpose of those cells dividing is 2 things. It could be reproduction, and we're going to write a little bit about reproduction. It said that, remember it said this, it was in asexual reproduction where you have one parent, it made 2 identical offspring. So I'm going to put a little hyphen there, and I'm going to put unicellular asexual equals one parent dividing to equal 2 identical offspring. Now, we don't always just have the unicellular reproduction. It also said that multicellular could do that, and it would be multicellular asexual reproduction, meaning one parent, and it produces identical offspring. This is like the plants, and those offspring were called buds. Okay, so that's one part. I'm going to underline reproduction because that's the main answer. Okay, the other part was growth and repair. I'm going to underline that, and I'm going to talk just a little bit more about it. I'm going to give some examples. EX is for example, and it would be body growth, because cells divide, right? You got more cells than you had before, so you grew. With the tree, the sequoia tree, that's what happened. With your body, that's what happened. Another example is if you cut yourself, you have the ability to repair that cut because new cells start to fill in the cut. And so that would be body repair, because cells divide. All right. Now, on the Cornell note-taking, a lot of times your question may not come down to cover all of your answers, so you might put a bold line there. Great thing about Cornell notes is you can actually take this paper, fold it over to cover up the answer, and you can quiz yourself. Why do cells divide? Well, you should think reproduction, growth, and repair. And so sometimes people will put a little number out here, and that tells them when they're quizzing themselves how many answers there are. Why do cells divide? There's 3 things: reproduction, growth, and repair.